I'm Scott Al Miller. It is the 12th of November, 2023. This is my vlog of daily life living in Latin America. Today, I'm doing the video once again ahead of time. This is the last one, I promise, for the week at least. But I'm traveling today and I don't want to be behind on these videos. I want to make sure that you guys have a constant stream of stuff so that I'm able to keep up while I'm gone. So I'm doing that today. Our topic today is Nicaragua. Is it easy to live in? We're going to talk about that because that was posted on the show, and we're going to talk about where my travels are taking me today, what you can expect from the day's travel events. So we're going to get to all that right after the bump. I had some really interesting light today, so I decided to kind of stand where I am, and I hope it looks good on the show. I can't really tell because the screen is absolutely tiny on the GoPro, but I've got some foliage here actually in the shot. I don't normally do that, so hey, well, let me know what you think, right? Get down in those comments. Things like this. I want to know when the show looks good, when it sounds good, when it's more interesting, when it's less interesting. Obviously, I prefer the positive feedback. It makes me feel better, but the negative feedback helps me know when there's things. And I know a lot of you say when I'm walking around, the show is way better, and I get it. Trust me, I know. Or at least when I'm out in different locations, because right now I'm in the yard a lot, but with this travel that's going on, there's just no way I could do anything else. Hopefully when I am on this trip, there's gonna be a lot of great footage. Hopefully I'm getting that great footage right now while you're watching this, but because I'm scrambling so much, there has been just a tremendous amount of work at my office and getting this show ready. I have been overwhelmed. So today is the 12th. That makes it Sunday. Yesterday, if all went well, and check my shorts, those should have at least a minimum of updates already posted so you can keep up in real time. But for the bigger picture, I should have been on a bus all day yesterday on the Nica Expresso coming from León, Nicaragua down to San Jose, Costa Rica, which is where I should be at the time that you're watching this episode if, like most people, you're watching it on the first half of the day that it releases on Sunday the 12th. So on this day, I should be hanging out at the Hilton across the street from the airport in San Jose. I have a flight out at 4 o'clock this afternoon, so somewhere around noon I'm going to, which is way too early, but it's really convenient just because of the way that the flights all line up. Should be heading across the street to go to the airport where I will wait an extraordinarily long time to catch my flight, especially as I'm not checking any luggage, so it's going to be really fast. I'm going to be sitting at the gate, probably napping for a bit of the afternoon, but maybe I'll get some of the show recorded for you as well. That flight is going to be my first flight out of Central America heading to South America. I'll be immediately heading to Lima, Peru, which I've never been to Peru or South America at all, in fact. So I'm very excited to even just touch down and see the airport at Lima. I'm very sad that I don't have a chance to get out of the airport. I'm not going to be going to Lima and hanging out. It doesn't get to check Peru off of my country list or anything like that, much to my wife's pleasure, who she and I have a bit of a competition because I've been to a bunch of Latin American countries that she has not and one European one. She has been to the Bahamas and a bunch of Asian countries that I have not, and we're roughly equal. With this, had I gotten Peru, I would have been probably in the lead, but I'm not getting it. I'm only getting Bolivia, but I do get South America, so we end up very much toe-to-toe. I will be hopping through Peru pretty quickly. It's not a long stop at all. And I'll be heading on during the night tonight to Santa Cruz de las Sierras in southeastern Bolivia, or eastern Bolivia, but south of the major cities, kind of towards the Amazon. I should be getting there at about 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. So if all goes well, by the time you're seeing tomorrow's episode, which hopefully I will have recorded while doing my travels, I will already be in Bolivia and doing my things there. It's going to be very exciting. I'm going to be spending the majority of the time in Cochabamba, some of the time in La Paz, a few moments in Santa Cruz de las Sierras, and I'm excited. This is going to be really, really cool. But I don't have anything to tell you about the trip and all that at the point that I'm recording this. So now we're going to talk about, is it actually easy to live in Nicaragua? So this was posted on my channel. Sure, Nicaragua is easy to live in, and the same person said it multiple times. Nicaragua is easy as long as you're a millionaire. Now, I want to really break this down. One, if you're rich, everywhere in the world is easy. Like, that's just how life is, right? And that's a sad state of things, but it is obvious and logical and simply a general truth. Rich people have it easier than poor people. Poor people suffer the world over. And even if they're not suffering, they have it harder. Like they have to go to work and they don't get to eat just anything they want anytime, and they can't just take a private plane wherever they want to go. It's rough being poor, and being rich is nice and easy, especially because you can hire people to do things for you. So as a general rule, when your rich life is easy, when your poor life is not. That is what it is. When you're looking at countries or regions to live in, you have to accommodate for how your money is going to change that place for you. Meaning, if you have a medium income, right, and you move to a country that has a very low standard of income, then that medium income is going to make you be able to act and behave much more like a rich person. If you move to an extremely expensive place to live, say a Switzerland or a Norway, having a medium income could leave you acting like a pauper. So that relative income aspect is very, very important when you're considering these things. If you have unlimited money, if you're Elon Musk, you're Bill Gates, you're someone like that, and you just have wads and wads of money and you don't care about spending it on anything whatsoever, generally you can make any place so easy that it's all about the same. But technically, you're going to find places like Switzerland and Norway to actually be the easiest because they just have the most resources, the most things, and you can still hire people to do things for you in the way you could in a lower income country. Places like Nicaragua are going to have fewer accommodations for the super high rich, and so if you come here, you're still in some ways going to be in amongst the people and doing things the same way as everyone else. It's much harder to overcome that because there just aren't systems for it, just because you're the only person with those kinds of resources. And so in some ways you could make an argument that like a Switzerland may be the easiest place to live if you have outrageous amounts of money. But working in the realm of reason, where we're talking about people who are not so poor as to be able to, more or less live wherever they want, definitely are able to live in middling income countries like the United States or Canada or whatever, normal Europe, and looking at how that is when you come to other countries. If you're coming from, say, the United States or any place where you don't have enough money to simply hire staff, moving to Nicaragua may not end up being super easy. But it is absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, so much easier than staying in the United States. So as a relative thing, until you're worth billions, and I mean it, billions of dollars, you're going to find Nicaragua to be easier than the US. At some point, you'll have so much money that the US starts to become easier, but only at a point where every place is ridiculously easy and you never have to worry about anything ever. So it's a weird statement to make that Nicaragua is easy only if you have a lot of money. No, specifically, if you don't have a lot of money, that's when it becomes easy relative to the other places you could go. If you're in the United States, for example, and you don't have enough to be able to afford your own car, for example, or your own house, but you're still able to survive, then coming to Nicaragua, maybe you still don't have enough to afford a house or car, although it's much more likely, but everything else you do will be easier. For example, the cost of literally everything is like the same or cheaper, with the things that are the same being not that many, and the things that are cheaper generally a lot cheaper. Right? Your money goes farther, and you have more ability to hire people to help you or to have resources that help you. The overall level of ease is going to be greater here. Now, why do people then have this impression that it's hard? Well, it's legit, but we should delve into that a little bit because it does warrant some explanation. When moving to a new country, actually, let me back up. So I come from a technology background, and when talking to a lot of people, they will say, well, I like using Windows, and I don't want to move to Linux because Linux is hard and Windows is easy. Yet, if you took anyone and sat them down at both who didn't have experience with either, it would be shocking to have someone say that Windows is even close to as easy as most Linux is, say Ubuntu or Fedora. If you're not familiar with these, just hang on with the story. Those systems are truly much easier. They're more intuitive, they're more attractive, they're better polished, they have more built-in capabilities. You don't have to go out and find third-party software to do basic tasks, even advanced tasks. Nearly anything you would ever want to do, from photo editing to writing music to video editing to databases and spreadsheets and word processing, all of that is built in. And not only is it built in, so you don't have to go out and find those applications, but it maintains those applications and maintains compatibility between them and maintains its compatibility with the operating system. All these things, these really actually difficult tasks that people on Windows have have to do manually and you have to be an expert and know how to deal with them is all handled. And things like needing to manage your firewall or your antivirus. You don't need antivirus on Linux. That's a Windows only complication. And the firewall is built in and already running in all normal cases. So all the things that people find difficult in Windows are handled for you automatically in Linux. All of them. It's so much dramatically easier that many people find it so foreign because it isn't hard enough. They can't believe that Windows is as hard as it is and so popular that they project hardness onto Linux and pretend or imagine that it must be hard and they must be missing something when they're not. It's actually that easy. People who just use Linux have like nothing to worry about. It just works. They're so used to, people in the Windows world, things not working, that they're confused by how simple it is and how much is handled for them. It's completely baffling. The same kind of thing happens when people come to Nicaragua. Yes, there's a lot of differences, and that's where you run into problems. If you're used to Windows and you're used to having to go to a website and download things and you're used to having to manage these things, when you don't, it's confusing and weird. You're so in tune to that it never occurs to you that everything might be already provided for you, that you simply don't have to do those tasks. And you'll hear people who use Windows making that switch go, but how do I do this? And you're like, you don't do it at all. It doesn't get any easier than not having to do it at all, and they don't understand. It takes a lot of work to convince someone it's just that much easier. Nicaragua falls into that same kind of category. It falls into that same kind of category as a country. So much is so easy that it is confusing, that Americans just can't believe it, that they aren't sure what to do. Now, it is true, there are many things that are also different, and the language barrier obviously is very different, so those things mean that you have to do things that you may not be used to, and anything you're not used to seems hard. But in a imperial sense, in a absolute which one takes more money, which one takes more work, Nicaragua is going to be the easier, cheaper one every time. Sometimes just a little bit easier, always a lot cheaper, but sometimes a lot easier as well. The thing that makes Nicaragua even more than that, just the simple, it's a change, therefore people perceive it as being hard, and that makes sense. The other thing is that when people come to Nicaragua, typically, especially if you're coming from the US or Canada, you're often going to treat Nicaragua differently than you treated your home country, and herein is the trick. Same thing with Windows and Linux. I often have people come to me and say, but this thing in Linux is so hard to do. And I say, well, that's interesting. How did you do that in Windows? Well, I can't do it in Windows. I'm like, that's right. You can't do it in Windows. It's impossible. So the fact that you were able to do it in Linux, it was just hard, makes it easy by comparison, right? It was impossible where you came from. Nothing is harder than impossible. Now it's possible, it's just not easy. So in a relative sense, though, it is easier, but people will use it to say, no, it's hard. No. That's easy. That's what easy looks like in this context. When you're coming to Nicaragua, a lot of people, for example, will never have tried to become an immigrant when they live in the United States because they were born there. It's the first time they're moving. So this is legit. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do these things. When you're coming to Nicaragua, you're not just dealing with a new country, you're often dealing with trying to become an immigrant. You're dealing with residencies and citizenships and those kinds of things you've never had to deal with before. If you were doing things in reverse, coming from Nicaragua and going to the United States, you would find them to be outrageously difficult, expensive, convoluted, time-consuming, life-destroying, disheartening. And coming to Nicaragua, you say, oh, well, it's some paperwork I've got to do and it's going to take a little bit of time. Big deal, right? But it's a task that you've probably never done before, and so it seems like it's hard to be in Nicaragua because you're trying to do something that you don't have a comparable experience to. Even bigger than that, many people, when they come to Nicaragua, use the opportunity to start a new business or try to invest or try to work in a market where they don't have the right to work. They try to earn money in a market where they're not native and they don't have the resources and the knowledge and the training and the market experience and all those things. In some cases, it's just you don't have that experience, so it's going to be a lot harder for you. So you're going to perceive, even though something may be easy, that it feels harder. But in many, many cases, the majority, I would say, you have people who have never made the attempt to start a business or similar in the United States, and they try it for the first time in Nicaragua. And what they are experiencing is both all the culture shock and all the, oh, I don't know anything about how Nicaragua works, and I don't have an established set of resources like I do in the United States. That doesn't make Nicaragua harder. It means that you are not as prepared for it. You've not already put in that work to have built up those things that make life easier from wherever you live, but also it is, starting a business is very hard. In the United States, in Canada, in Nicaragua, in Brazil, it doesn't matter. Businesses are hard. If they were easy, everyone would do it. right? If they made money automatically, who would work for someone else? No one would. That's not quite true. A lot of people would, but many fewer than do it now. If you knew your business had a good chance of success, people would do it left and right. That's what people would do. They don't. Those that do often fail, and those that don't often don't because they know or perceive roadblocks that are just too much. They're not going to make money. It's going to be too stressful. They're never going to get it off the ground. No one's ever going to give them the money to do it, whatever. When coming to Nicaragua, so many North Americans jump straight into, I'm going to start a business. Something you would never ever contemplate doing in America, whether it's just starting a business at all or starting a business in your first year of being there. Imagine coming to the United States and being like, it's my first year. I don't know how taxes work yet. I don't know how transportation works yet. I don't know the culture. I don't know why businesses are located where they are. There's just all these things I don't understand, but I'm going to put my life savings up and start a business and not have a job and just do all these things that require all this knowledge and diligence and experience. And those are the things that make the money. I'm going to do that instead of working for someone and using a skill set that's transferable. Generally, you wouldn't do that because it would feel crazy, it would be scary, and it would be reckless. And the same thing happens when you come to Nicaragua. But for some reason, people feel emboldened to do so, probably because the market is less expensive. So it feels like, okay, I don't need $50,000 to start this small business. I can do it with $10,000. Well, what's $10,000? Let's make this happen. But they forget that that $10,000 buy-in means that the chances of failure are somewhat higher, and the ability for success to be significant enough to pay for you to live is much lower. And so people end up in a position where they fail to have success to the degree necessary to survive the vast majority of the time, and they perceive it as Nicaragua being hard, and that's not at all the case. It is very easy. It is that you're trying to do something insurmountable in your home country, something you would never have attempted before. And it's so easy. The fact that you tried it in Nicaragua means you recognized Nicaragua as being so much easier, so much more approachable than the other countries you've come from, that you were willing to give a try to something outrageously reckless and hard no matter where you are, because you saw it as easier, right? Or more likely to be successful, or you just felt emboldened. But the fact that you feel that way tells us that it's not really that Nicaragua is hard. It's just that some things are always hard, and the fact that Nicaragua is easy, and when you're talking about a country, hard or easy is always as in relation to other countries. There's no, absolute hard or easy, because every place takes some amount of work and no place is impossible or people couldn't live there. So it's all about relatives. And Nicaragua really is easy as long as you're trying to do the same normal things you would do somewhere else. Once you try to live a completely different life that would be impossible somewhere else, you can probably do a lot of that stuff in Nicaragua, but don't be surprised when you find out that it's not completely handed to you on a silver platter, because nothing is. Like, that's just not how life is. It's unfortunate, right? But that is why so many people, I believe, have this impression that Nicaragua is hard. It's because they're trying to do something impossible somewhere else. And when they're here, everything is easy enough that you're willing to take those kinds of chances. And that's a great reason to come down and explore and learn more about Nicaragua or other countries in the region. There are a lot of places that make your dreams more possible, but I warn you over and over again, don't jump in, don't fail to do your research, don't think it's magic and that the world's just going to hand you successes in business without having to put in the same work you would somewhere else, without having to put in the same rules of business and learning the ropes and following, guidelines for business, all those things. Like, you've got to have a product that makes sense. You've got to be bringing something to the table. You've got to be unique. You can't just be, hoping for the best and magic happens. If you're willing to put in the time, learn the market, do your footwork, there's a lot of opportunity, but the first thing you need to do is get to know the market. Don't treat it as magic. Don't do something in the big picture that you wouldn't do in your home country. You wouldn't just show up and invest without knowing anything about the neighborhood, or knowing what food people like, or knowing how to employ people, or knowing how taxes work. Learn those things first. Then, with eyes wide open, you can investigate whether a business opportunity makes sense for you. Thanks for joining me. Hopefully, I am in Bolivia as we're wrapping this up. I look forward to bringing you content from my travels. I'm going to be a lot more awake, a lot more energetic, a lot more on top of things. I am starting to feel the panic of getting ready to go, because I have just a few days from the time I'm recording this until I'm actually on the plane. And I got to get all these things uploaded, which is very, very hard. It's hard enough just to record them. There's just been so much going on. So thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe. If you'd like to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Scott Allen Miller. As always, please post on social media, tell your friends about the show, and I will see all of you from Bolivia tomorrow.